Good evening. Welcome to Last Bell Boxing. We are joined today by Mr. Roberto Diaz, a legend that is. Good evening, Roberto.
Good evening. Sorry keeping you all late up so late, but all the best to everybody listening, all the friends out there in the UK.
And we're also joined by Andy, the regular panel member. And then we got Ray at the bottom, who's also the regular panel member. Ray?
Hello, Roberto. You okay?
I'm good, pal. Thank you.
So, Roberto, obviously it goes without saying that you loved in the UK. You know, the boxing fans in the UK appreciate the work you've done. But what I'd like to do is take us back to the beginning. I've done some homework on you, young man, and I can't believe the story behind how you actually got into matchmaking. So I'll let you tell the story, but if you could just start at the beginning of how you actually got into the industry.
It's an incredible. I mean, it's still today, 20 plus years later, it still sometimes amazes me because how I got my foot in, how it all came about, and where it's led up to. It's really like a movie, like a dream, you don't hear about it on a daily basis. But I was very fortunate. One of my favorite fighters, well known out in the UK, growing up, was Marco Antonio Barrera.
Yeah,
and I'm a big fan of Barrera's. I lived in San Diego at the time, followed his career. It was coming off the Junior Jones losses that he had back-to-back that I bumped into him at a mall in San Diego during Christmas season. And as a fan, I mean, it was, wow, there's Barrera. Even though he had lost to Junior Jones, I was still a big fan. I knew he was still young enough that he'd come back from it. So I thought I was going over to say some words of encouragement. Keep your head up. You know, I'm a big fan, just like anybody else. But it was just very fortunate. I remember asking him for an autograph, but I wasn't one of those fans that needed that I'd pull out a piece of paper or a napkin or here, write it on my shirt. It had to be, if it was a baseball player, if it was a football player, if it was it had to be something to do with the sport, whatever he was signing. So I remember running around the mall all over, finding something of boxing, but there wasn't anything. I mean, there wasn't a sporting goods store, so there wasn't anything in there that I can get for him to sign. So when I see him later, maybe about an hour later in the mall, I approached him again. He probably thought I was this stalker. And I approached him and I said, if I give you my address, you think you can mail me something signed? Marco, I'm a big fan, blah, blah, blah. So he said, yeah, give me your address. Of course, I already had it written down in a piece of paper in case I saw him again, and I give it to him. And a few weeks passed and nothing. Obviously, it was the holidays, Christmas. Early in January, I get a package in the mail at home. And I open it up, and it's a T-shirt, and it's a studio photo, and it's, here's my address and phone number, stay in touch. And so there was something that I was like, wow, this guy's pretty cool. You know, not only a fighter I enjoy watching, but I look up to. Now fast forward a little bit, and it's 1999, December as well, and I read that he's going to fight close to San Diego, close to home. So I said, I'm going to make the trip out to see him. It's actually where we do many of our shows today in Springs in Indio, California. He was going to do an exhibition December 99, actually December 98, because his first fight with Morales was coming up. So it was December of 98, his first fight with Morales. 99. His first fight with Morales was in 2000, February. So I go out to see him. And I'm waiting to get into, and he walks in with his team and looks at me, and he says, hey, San Diego, right? San Diego. And I said, yeah, we met at the mall in San Diego. Yeah, come on in. Come in the back with us. I'll introduce you to the team, my father, my uncle, everybody, my brother. So I go in the back in the dressing room with them. They give me a credential. I ended up taking photos. I'd never done that before as far as on the ring mat. So I was excited. Wow, I'm taking photos as like a photographer of Barrera. And then after the fight, he says, what's going on? I said, I want to go to the Morales fight. I really do, but I don't want to sit just anywhere. I mean, I'm willing to pay for my tickets. That's not the issue. but I want to be with the Barrera crowd. I want to be with the Barrera team. I want to be in that atmosphere. And he says, talk to my guy, his manager at the time, Oscar Maldonado. And I said, yeah, no. So long story short, I go to the first Morales fight, tremendous fight, Mandalay Bay, a lot of fans. I think it was maybe 80% for Morales, 20% for Barrera. But after the fight, even the Morales were going up to Barrera and saying, you won, you're our champion. We came to see from Morales. We came from Tijuana. So I was excited because they gave me a track suit from the team and treated me as a special guest. And that relationship just built. They told me, come up to Big Bear before the fight, come up to Big Bear, visit a camp. I took them all the VHS tapes at the time of Morales' fight so they can train and prepare and the trainers watch them. We became very good friends. Today, I'm the godfather of his oldest son. But during those times of him being in camp, at first one time he said, why don't you carry the flag into the ring?
Wow.
Really? I could carry the flag? Yeah. So if you see some of his earlier fights, even before the Hamed fight, I'm carrying the flag. And to me, it was just like, wow, you know what? Hey, you guys, I tell my friends, and you see me in the corner with Barrera with the flag. To me, that was a dream come true. There was no pay. There was no, he was inviting me to the fight. So took care of my room, took care of tickets, but that was just, as a fan, a dream come true. Move on forward. He separates from his promoter and his management team, which was Foreign Boxing and the Maldonado family, and moves over to Oscar de la Hoya's Golden Boy Promotions, who was really beginning at that time in the promotional area. Marco was the first big name signed to Golden Boy. So he calls me, he says, I'm leaving my former team. I'm moving on to this new team. Want to know if you want to come and work with me. And it was like everything in the past had been just part of the team, but really it wasn't with pay. He had his own team doing all his business and everything. But now it's like you're going to be in charge of going and dealing and negotiating my purses and everything. I still think of that today because there was a moment in my mind at the moment that I said, what if I ruin this man's career? I've never done this before. I mean, one thing's to be a fan, one thing's to know styles and say this style doesn't fit that. But now go into an office, sit down and start negotiating purses and numbers. And I thought to myself, there could only be two things that happen. Either it goes this way or it goes that way. And I said, okay, yeah, no, I'm with you and let's do it. I thank God I made that decision because I could have said no. You know, you need somebody that definitely has to take over a career of somebody that knows what they've done or done it in the past. That wouldn't have landed me where I am today, of course. But I said yes. Her first fight was Manny Pacquiao. So right there, I'm like, oh my God. You know, at the beginning, we're fighting Manny Pacquiao. But then when we had the end result, if you remember San Antonio, he stops Marco. Yeah. And it was like, holy crap. Did I just ruin this man's career? And is it my fault? At the time, nobody knew what this phenom was going to turn into, named Manny Pacquiao. You know, you saw something, not an ordinary fighter. You saw something above just upper class fighter, but nothing really special. I had seen this fight with Agapito Sanchez when I was studying the fight for Marco, and it was like, nothing special here. I mean, Agapito was controlling him with the jab. Marco had a beautiful jab because he's a natural southpaw. So I didn't see anything that outside of, oh, he's fast. Fast forward, look at his career he's had. Look what he's still doing today. I mean, the man's just a phenomenal fighter, an amazing fighter beyond that. So, but that put a little doubt in my first fight with Marco, and it's like, oh my God, Golden Boy's gonna cut us. It's over. And before I even got started, we went on. He beat Paulie Ayala. We wanted to show that, look, we got to fight Paulie Ayala. He's a southpaw. We're going to show that we can beat southpaws. It was just a bad night. We didn't even think at the time, obviously, that it was Manny Pacquiao had a lot to do with it. We thought there was fires in Big Bear. There was a lot of distractions. Marco had a lawsuit pending with the former management and promotion. There was a lot going on. But add to that in front of you, you had an amazing fighter growing. in your own, right beyond you. So we went on. He fought Eric Morales the third time. Tremendous fight, tremendous victory, made some successful defenses. And then when it comes time when he's basically ready to retire after the Marquez fight, he went on and did some other fights, but he's the split from Golden Boy. And I said, Marco, don't fight no more. It's been so many years. It's over. It's done. And then let's just, move on and promote and do other things. And he, like many fighters, wanted to keep going. And I go back to what I was doing previous to boxing. To me, it had been a wonderful experience. It was over. It was done with. And one day I'm actually in South Africa, Johannesburg, with Manuel Medina, former world champion, also fought Nassim Hamed. And I'm with him for one of his last fights, and I get a call, and Eric Gomez wants to talk to me and wants to offer me a job. So I take the call, and I'm like, yeah, what's going on? Oh, well, you're not going to work with Barrera anymore? I said, no, he's going to do a couple of different things that I just didn't feel like it was the right things. But Eric says, we want to offer you a job here at Golden Boy. And I said, what? And he says, yeah, we're growing, and I need help. You're going to help me make the fights and sign the talent and just, be a part of Golden Boy. And that was like that next chapter of, wow, this dream keeps going. It's getting better. I've been 13 years at Golden Boy, great years, met some of the best athletes. I mean, I worked with Ricky Hatton here, David Hay, Amir Khan, some of the great Bernard Hopkins, Mosley's, Marquez, even Morales later in his career came over here, and some of the young athletes that we see today, some of the great champions that we're seeing, Deontay Wilder, Danny Garcia, all these guys came up through here, and I had a part of their career. So sometimes when I see them, I'm still like, wow, he's doing great. And you're fulfilled. You're fulfilled when you see them. Obviously, when you start seeing them lose or something, it's like, okay, it's time to, call it a night, a career. But that's what got me into this door. When Eric called me and says, if you're not going to work with Barrera, we really like how you work and you understand the game. Because in the negotiations, there was opponents that were brought up to me for Barrera, and I didn't like them style-wise. And I would say, no, let's look at somebody else. I like this guy. I like that guy. So I think they saw there was maybe some kind of knowledge there. And obviously you come here at the time, Golden Boy had shows every other week. So it was like, you're going to learn on the fast track, or you're going to sink, or you're going to swim. And that was the exciting. That was the adrenaline. The first two shows, I almost quit in the first one, and I almost quit in the second one. By the second one, it was like, oh, this is definitely not for me. But after the third and fourth and fifth, that you start learning more and getting more patient and understanding that there's no perfect show. Something's always going to expect the unexpected. And then you start, getting the second layer of skin, and you start, absorbing it. It's been 13 great years, almost 10 with Barrera. So it's been, like I said, it's sometimes I still pinch myself and say, I can't believe it.
Roberto, is it true that you don't really relax until both fighters are in the ring? I know you've been quoted as saying that as a matchmaker. Is that right?
That's true. And even when they're in the ring until that bell rings, because you never know. I've seen one, never happened to me, but you guys will probably remember this. They were in the ring, and one of them just decided to get out and walk and get out of the ring.
Yeah. It was like last year or something. Yeah.
I think a couple heavyweights, and it was like, okay, I haven't seen that yet. Knock on wood, I'll never see that. But you always know that, look, if I make a fight now, let's say 3 or 4 months before the fight actually going to take place, before that was like, wow, great. Now I can move on to the next show. I had 2020. We came in, we did a show January. By mid-January, I think I had February, March, and April done. The whole card. Maybe you missed one opponent here and there, but I had them all done. And that was one of the best starts of the year for me. I was already going to start working end of January on Canelo's card for May. Just to start plugging in. If this guy wins, he could be on the undercard. If this guy wins, he could be. And what happens? COVID hits, cancels 2 of my March cards, my April card, and then the May card. And I'm like, that probably happened because I already had all these cards done. I'm not thinking it was a worldwide pandemic. It was because Roberto had all these cards done, so that's why it happened. But
I have read a quote, Roberto. I have read a quote from you regarding the pandemic where you said your wife had you doing all handyman jobs around the house. Was that about right?
Yeah. At the beginning, it was so different where, okay, what am I going to do with my time? The office is closed. We're not doing boxing. How long is this going to be? Well, you know what? Let me straighten out the garage a little bit. Started fixing things and let me straight. Then you finish one project and it's like, okay, we still got another week to go. What are we going to do now this week? Let's start cleaning out the closets. And I was doing things that it was like, let me start learning how to cook and this and that. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm getting lost here. Let's go back to work. Let's make
And just one last one from me, Roberto. Do you think the way you got into boxing is why you value the opinion of fans so much? You go on record as saying you like to listen to fans, and that can't be said for everybody in boxing. But I know you really do genuinely value the opinion of boxing fans. So do you think that's because the way you come into the game?
100%. 100%. One thing that I will keep always with me is I don't want to forget how I got in or who I was before where I'm today. I am still, all of us in boxing have to be a fan of boxing because with all the ups and downs and last minute changes and everything, you have to have that passion for what you do in order to keep doing it. And as a matchmaker, it's even more tough because you deal with a lot of the bad news most of the time. When you got to go to the one side and say, hey, your opponent just got cut, he got injured in training, you're not going to fight, or he came in 10 pounds heavy. I mean, 1 or 2, you can deal with it. When they come in 10 pounds heavy, it's like, why did you even show up, But that makes it even more difficult. But something that I learned is, as a fan, I want to hear what the fans want. I really, really enjoy interacting with fans because I remember what it meant to me if I can ask a champion for a photo or somebody involved in the sport that I love that was give me the time and day. And I also see at times where some people are short with them and it's like, oh man, that's a heartbreaker for them. It might not mean something for this person because they're so used to it every day. Picture, they probably get fed up with it. But a good example, when I go to the UK, I get requests more in the UK for photos than I do here. And maybe it's sometimes I figure, well, they don't see me but on TV. So when they see me here, they want a Photoshop. There's not one person I can say like, no, of course not. I'm not a fighter. You shouldn't even be asking me for a photo. But if somebody comes in, hey, Diaz, can I get a picture with you? Absolutely.
You're a legend, though, fella. You're a legend. You do know that, don't you?
Right. But it's always like to give back. And I always like to send the message to fighters. I use boxing as that life is like a fight. Regardless, there's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days, there's going to be days that you don't feel like coming out, there's going to be days that you feel like you got dropped with, a ton of bricks. But it's a box, it's a match. It's not a one-rounder, it's a 12-round fight. So you got to get up and you got to keep going forward and you got to keep fighting. And the goal is to have your hand raised at the end. It doesn't have to be, end or raised in the first round, as long as it's raised in the end and you win that battle. Whatever it is, I always try to use boxing as an example because life's a fight. Life's a fight. Right now with this pandemic, the world got into a fight. And it's very, when it kept going longer and longer and longer, there was moments for everybody to stress and really, losing loved ones. But if we learn from those athletes that we work with or that we watch on TV, we can learn a lot and say, look, sometimes life's not easy and there's punches thrown. It's a matter of, dodging and weaving and fighting back. So I give boxing a lot of credit. Obviously, it's a sport that I love, that I learned from my father at an early age to watch and enjoy. But now I've learned so much out of it that I use on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll bring Andy in at this stage, Roberto. Andy, do you want to come in?
Yeah. Hi, Roberto. You all right?
I'm good, thank you.
I've got a question coming from our audience, and it's around how difficult is it finding that balance between making a fight that the network are happy with and making a fight that the fans want to see?
I think and that's a great question. I think most of the time the network's going to be listening to what they're hearing from the fans. So a lot of times those fights that the networks want to put on, it's something that's already been brewing. The fans have already been talking about it stuff. The hardest part is when the network sometimes doesn't know a certain opponent that you say, this opponent is very, very good. No, we won't accept him. And I'll give an example. Many years ago, on a small network that we used to have boxing all the time, it was called Telefutura Solo Boxeo, really in the Hispanic market. I try to do a fight between a young man that we used to promote here years ago from El Paso to fight Rocky Juarez.
Right.
And they told me no. The network said no. And I said, why? This is going to be a war. And they said, yeah, but the fans already know when Rocky Juarez steps into the ring that he's going to come out losing. I said, yeah, but he always gives 100%. It's not about winning or losing sometimes to the fans. It's about seeing a great fight. And they said no. So I put that young man into a fight with a kid with an amazing record, and that young man won in 2 or 3 rounds. And I said, see, records aren't everything. Let me do the Juarez fight against this kid in the next bout. They didn't want it. I remember one of the producers and everything said, do it. If that's what you feel and you feel real strong about that fight, put it on. I put it on, and Rocky Juarez won by knockout. So it showed that records, and that's what I've always said. In the matchmaking business, I'm not going to say anybody can do it, but when you're giving the stage and you're giving the opportunity, you can make a pretty record. You can make 20-0. You can make all 20 by knockout, and make sure he's not fighting. But from day one, I said, I'm not here to make pretty records. I'm here to make and work on world champions. And if that means we get there 18-2, but when he fights for that world title, I know he's winning it.
Yeah.
I'd rather do that. The pretty records, yeah, they look good, but what happens sometimes is they're fake. And when they finally face an opposition that's going to throw back and didn't come in here to lose, it's like a deer in headlights. They get lost. Some of my favorite fighters of all time, right there. I don't know if we could see them.
Yep. Pereira.
Yeah. Wow.
It's Hagler, Hearns, Duran, and Leonard. All 4 of them lost. But they all fought each other. There's that great series right now on Showtime. It just brought back
The Kings.
that era. That golden era to me was the 80s. Everybody fought each other. We still talk about these men 30, 40, 50 years after because they were great fighters, A lot of the kids today with undefeated records and everything, I don't think we'll be about them 10, 20, 30 years. We'll be lucky, or they'll be lucky. We're talking about them in the next 5 or 10 years. So it's changed a little bit. And to me, records have never been important. It's just a matter of how they're brought up. I'll look at, sometimes I'll get a call and I have an opponent. Will you consider him for one of your fighters? He's 20-0 with 19 knockouts. I'm like, whoa, that's dangerous. But then that happened at the beginning. Then I learned to, look it up. Who has he fought? And then when you see a list of unknown or just 0-10 and 5-10 and 15 and 35, it's like he's not 20-0 with 19 knockouts. He is on paper, but he's not ring-wise.
I agree.
You know, Roberto, we hear a lot of fans complaining when the top end fighters don't fight each other, or somebody that you want to see fight somebody, it doesn't happen. You know, when you're trying to negotiate one of your fighters against a man that's not within your stable, and you're speaking to a manager or a trainer from that camp, can you give us an insight of how difficult it is and the sort of obstacles you come up against when you're trying to negotiate things?
It's very difficult. That's why a lot of the fans today aren't getting the fights they deserve or that they want to see, that they should be seeing. But a lot has to do with now the game, how it's changed, and the politics. Look, at the end of the day, if the fighters want to fight, it doesn't matter who the promoters are, who the managers are. It just takes two to dance and takes two to tango. And when those two want to step in the ring, can get it done. A good example is Fury and Wilder. They've done it twice, even with opposing promoters. It's been done because both fighters said, let's get it done. That's what more fighters have to do. This is the only fight I'll fight. Go get it done. Both sides have to do the same thing, though. You know, I think we're missing out right now on two of the best welterweights out there, Errol Spence, who I know very well and I admire a lot, and Terrence Crawford. That fight should be done. Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns fought in their early 20s. These guys are already in their early 30s and still haven't fought each other. Yeah. Because what's going to happen if they sit down at the table, it's just going to go back and forth, and I want this, and I want that, and I got to be first, and I got to be – just put all the ego aside, bring it on the table, there's so many creative ways you can say, look, it's 40 and split 40-40, and that extra 20% goes to the win. There's so many different ways that when you want to get something done, it could be done. And that's one thing with working at Golden Boy that has me, it's made my job easier. As a promoter, we're willing to work with any promoter. We've worked with Don King, we've worked with Gary Shaw, Main Events,
Eddie Hearn.
I mean, on the last one, Haney and Linares. It's not. I thought we were going to go 5-0. We went for 1. We work with all the promoters as long as the fights make sense for the fighters and for the fans. The other thing that helps me is that Oscar, our boss, fought everybody, so he's not coming into the office and saying, "Why did we lose last night? Why did this fighter get beat? He wasn't supposed to get beat." It's boxing. If you put on competitive fights, that means they're risky and dangerous fights. But that's what I like as far as pulling up a bout sheet. I like pulling up a bout sheet and saying today, oh, this one's going to win. And then tomorrow, no, I think this one's going to. And then you're back and forth because that's a real 50-50 fight. Yeah. And that's what excites the fans. You know, I hear it. I'm always listening or taking notes. Or reading their comment, and I love it. I mean, it speaks. It just gives that little pat on the back when they say, you know what, Golden Boy does put on some competitive fights. Golden Boy. I read something recently that said even the fighters that we don't know, they're still competitive fights. Like they still don't know the fighters. They're not, worldwide known or recognized, but when they tune in, they're competitive fights because they're in real fights, and that's where you're building character in these young men too. It's not, they can't all be hard because then you'll cut a career short, but they can't all be easy because they're not going to progress and learn. So it has to be a balance. Sometimes we're not perfect. Boxing, there's nothing written in stone. It happened to me a couple weeks ago. Bektamir Melkuziev, a kid that I have so much and trust and faith in. But that's the beauty of boxing. He was supposed to go in there and knock out Gabriel Salo in 4 or 5 rounds. But nobody told Gabriel Salo that. And Gabriel Salo
didn't follow the script.
Last night's very confident. Kept telling me from the moment I made the fight, Robert, I'm going to school this kid. I said, Gabe, bring it. Because if you win, he's going to learn from it with all your experience. But if you don't, and I thought if Beck wins and knocks out Gabe, it's a big announcement. I'm for real. I'm not just a hype job. Now, it backfired. He got knocked out. He got caught. You know, Bektamir has already reached out and told us, get us the rematch. I'll fight him for free. You don't pay me. Give him my salary, but I want the rematch. That's the kind of fighter this kid is. He's not coming back saying, hey, after this, I need a couple tune-up. He knew he was on a fast track, why he was on a fast track. 300 amateur fights. He got caught. I'm going to bring him back soft because I want to see where he is mentally once that bell rings. He could say all the right things in the gym right now, is sparring and knocking guys out again. This is a guy that knocks out heavyweights. But once that bell rings and the gloves are small and the headgear's off,
and the lights on.
I got to see how he reacts to that first punch now. And once he gets through those first couple rounds and first couple punches, then I know, okay, he's back. Then let's continue where we left off. And to Gabe, I applaud him. That's the beauty of boxing. Nothing's ever written in stone. And now Gabe has just moved his career from being that gatekeeper to now maybe in position to a big fight against Jaime Munguia, which now brings back the Mexico-Puerto Rico rivalry. But now people you're going to see are going to say, hey, Gabe has a shot. Gabe could beat Munguia. All of a sudden now Gabe's the guy. So that's what I like about boxing. When you make these fights that all of a sudden the experts say, oh, this is a mismatch, and there you go. Somebody forgot to tell Gabe that. Yeah.
Ray, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, another question from the fans there, Roberto. Bearing in mind that we're still in a pandemic, how difficult has that been to make fights during a pandemic? Has that had its limitations, but has it also had its rewards as well? Because it looks as though you always seem to find a way. So how have you found matchmaking during the pandemic?
I think it's actually made it easier on one part, because the fighters now all of a sudden they want to fight. Because remember, when the fighters aren't fighting, it's very few that have these investments that have where they could take off a year or two. But everybody else are fighting pay by fight, fight by fight is how they earn their money. And then whatever they earn, they're not earning millions so it's, I need to fight again. So when this pandemic hit, fighters couldn't train because the gyms are closed and they got to be at home. They start getting restless. I mean, all they want to do is just go into that gym and hit that bag. So they had probably thought the first few weeks, okay, first couple of months, okay. But as time got back and longer and longer and longer, I think that buildup was like, man, I just want to fight. I just want to fight. So I remember the first few calls. Hey, you want to fight this guy? You want to fight? There's no time for tune-ups now because there's very little spots. There's very little activity. You need a tune-up. Go back and keep working, keep training. So the fights got competitive. The fighters were like, hey, I just want to get paid. Let me get in there because I haven't fought in 6-8 months. I need to pay bills. So I think that made it easier. What made it harder is the purses aren't as big as they were before right now because you don't have a total attendance. I was in Bolton for the Harris Sandoval fight, 150 in attendance. So that puts a strain on the promotion because a lot of the times that's where you make your money in order to pay. If you have TV, obviously that's the plus, but you get sponsors, but you also depend on the gate. And when the gates reduce because pandemic, because of social distance, that's hard to tell the fighters that, hey, you've been used to making so much. I can't pay you that much right now because there's these other obstacles. So that's been a balance, but it's affected not just boxing, it's affected the whole world in all sports, in acting, in every industry, it's been affected.
Yeah.
Nice one. And just another point there, Roberto, another question that came in. I know you've obviously been in a position where you've been instrumental in signing fighters for Golden Boy. In your view, because you'll have a good eye for talent, let's be honest, what are you looking for in a particular fighter? Because I know you've had some UK fighters, haven't you? You've had like Anthony Ogogo and Jason Queeley come over there. So what type of qualities, what type of things are you looking for in a fighter when you're looking to sign them?
Obviously, the most any fight. because at the end of the day, it's a building process when you're at the beginning of career, a pro debut. Yeah, the first couple of years is progression. But at the end of the day, you're going to eventually have to fight. I think discipline is number 2 for me, because I've seen so much talent without discipline and not go anywhere. And it's sad. And it's sad because you see these talented kids that can change their lives, their family lives altogether, but they don't have the discipline. And no matter how talented, it's going to be a matter of time. And then the third thing that I personally like to look for is that marketability. Is he going to be able to transcend outside of just boxing, not just that typical look, whether it's by talk, whether it's by physicality, whether it's I like seeing that he's not a boxer. No way he's a boxer. He can't be a boxer because either he looks like a baby. Sandoval the other day, everybody's like, that kid can't be too good. He looks like a 14-year-old. Well, looks are deceiving. And then you have the Ryan Garcia. Hey, he can't be a boxer. He looks like a movie star. He looks like a model. David Haye. David Haye, when I first saw him on Showtime, over here we watched him on Showtime, but then I looked him up on YouTube and I saw the Sky interview. And I said, wait a minute, for the same fight, after he knocked out Enzo Macronelli, he did 2 separate interviews, which were night and day. And that told me this kid's smart. He's marketing 2 different markets at the same time, but he was very smart. On one of them, he gave all the respect to Enzo Macronelli, and that was Sky. But on the Showtime interview, he calls out the Klitschko's and puts them on notice and I'm like, this guy gets it. He's being very respectful at home. But to the world, I want these big guys. I'm going to get these guys. I'm going to knock them out. And he was a good-looking guy that could talk. Anthony Joshua. I'm a big fan of Anthony Joshua. In fact, I had a little talk with him in Sheffield and was trying to sign him before he went pro. I'm a big fan of his because he is, to me, the throwback look of what a heavyweight champion should be. Gives us a little bit of that reminder of, Muhammad Ali, which is my favorite fighter of all time, and carries himself well-spoken and, exciting, a Tommy Hearns type a fighter in the ring because, he's chinny. That's the most exciting part of it. He can knock you out or be knocked out. So I'm a big fan of his. So yes, I look for, obviously, can he fight? You can build other things. When they brought me kids that, oh man, this kid can't fight, but he has that charisma, that charm, that discipline, and he's young enough, you can build where they'll learn to fight. I mean, Munguia right now impressed the heck out of me the other day because you could see the progress. And that's where you see beauty. Canelo Alvarez, I met him when he was 15 years old, 30 years old today. In those 15 years, I don't think he's plateaued yet. And that's very rare of his age. And that's scary. Every fight you see improvement. Every fight you see something different. Every fight you still see that intensity to train, to go out, to prove something. I can do challenge. I can beat guys that people think I shouldn't be beat. I never in my wildest dreams, and again, I've known him for 15 years, would have ever dreamt thinking of him fighting at 175 and beating a guy at 175, a legit guy. I mean, Chavez Jr. and Kovalev, because Chavez Jr. is a bigger guy, but to knock out a 175-pounder who 2-3 fights ago was the most feared man in the division. Canelo's not tall. He's not big. He's big, but it's that skill, that talent. That's why the reason Sugar Ray Leonard was able to go up in divisions and beat bigger guys, because of the ability and the talent.
Yep.
You mentioned Ryan Garcia a minute ago. How good do you think he can be?
I think sky's the limit. He's in a different era of boxing today where he's amazing. I mean, the amount of followers but what I've seen is discipline, quick learner, and he wants to, and not only that, he wants to be great. That's what all fighters should want. Some fighters come into the mentality is, I just want to be rich, be great, and the money's going to come. If you're waiting, and because at the end of the day, that materialistic stuff, and it's happened to some of these greats that you see them later, and it's sad to see, wow, I can't believe they ended up like that. But we still talk about them, we still respect them, and still that can never be lost. The money, that could be spent. Where are these fighters or champions that don't have that legacy tomorrow and don't have the money tomorrow and walk around this and nobody knows them anymore? But to have that legacy, at least you hold that, because that you can never lose. And to me, that's something very special. When we see some of our great fighters of the past and say, wow, look at him, that man was amazing, and you'll never lose that.
And Ryan Garcia, just touching on him, he gets it, don't you, Roberto? He gets the social media, he gets the Instagram, he knows how to pull the viewers into the boxing game from them platforms.
That's it.
So, he's a very smart cookie, that young man. So I think
if it wasn't something special, or it wasn't something special in him, then everybody would have it. We'd all have 8 million followers, but it's special. And it's something that, like you said, he gets it. He knows how to interact with his fans. He knows how to, whether it's in person or through social media. But at the end of the day, he has to know how to fight, because that could all get lost tomorrow if he doesn't. And the kid could fight. I mean, look, in his first fight with Eddie Reynoso, I saw improvement in the first round, because where Ryan was pulling back originally in his first fight and only a couple months in the camp with Reynoso and Canelo, is all of a sudden the first round in the fight where Canelo fought Fielding in New York, he would put the distance and use the range. But rather than pulling back, he was now putting the distance by sticking out the left hand and keeping the opponent outside of his reach. So right there in the first round, you watch the clip and he's already doing it. So I said, imagine and he's so young and eager to learn that he can only get better with time. It's just a matter of those type of fights that are going to teach him.
And Luke Campbell's a very good learning fight, isn't it?
Absolutely. Luke Campbell, an Olympic gold medalist, had all the experience from the amateurs. In fact, Luke Campbell, and we said it before the fight, was the most dangerous fight to date for Ryan. You had a southpaw who had a lot of experience. And not only that, you had a fighter that practically had his back against the wall. I've lost to Linares. I lost to Lomachenko. I gained experience from those losses. Now I got to go beat this young kid, because he can't be better than me. I have more experience than him. I fought better opposition than him. But if I lose to him, this could be, now I go back to the UK and maybe become just a UK fighter. I'm not saying that's what it's going to happen, but that's more likely because of his age and everything. So those are dangerous fighters. Again, a Gabe Rosado, when the back's against the wall, this could be it for me, but I'm not ready to let it go. They could be the dangerous fighters. And look, he dropped Ryan. Yeah. But that shows that Ryan's not just a social media star, because Ryan was able to get up and win by knockout. That's what made it fascinating. Not only get up and win, but get up and win by knockout. Because Ryan, from that point on, became even more aggressive to try to, hey, I'm not going to let you, knock me down and think that you're going to beat me.
And it was some shot, wasn't it, from Garcia? I felt it from this side of the pond.
Beautiful shot.
Yeah, beautiful. So the last question I've got, and then we'll let you go, Roberto. Thank you for your time. Is
thank you.
A viewer has asked how Eddie Hearn has changed the market in America regarding boxing. So obviously set up Matchroom USA. So the question is, has Eddie Hearn changed the landscape of boxing in America?
I don't think so. I mean, he's doing very well. He's put on a lot of events, a lot of shows. But I think boxing is boxing. There's no look. It's like in boxing, you have the fighter of the moment at one time and the trainer of the moment that's popular. Boxing does full circles. We were there. We were there years ago with all the champions, and everybody has their moment. That's the beauty too. But one thing that I like is like, hey, and I've talked to DAZN, and I've talked to Eddie, and I've talked to Oscar. There should be, like, they're doing their shows. We're on the same network, working together. let's say they do 4 shows, we do 4 shows. At the end of the year, we should put our best against Matchroom's best and make like that Super Bowl type extravaganza event where it's competitive, it's fun for us,
and the fans are the winners, aren't they?
The fans are going to love it because now it's not just they're fighting, they got an opponent. No, it's 2 A sides fighting each other, and that's a fight, and I love it. I love it because it's again competitive, friendly competition. But at the end of the day, the fans get what they want. Look, but they say nobody wants to fight Demetrius Andrade. Quavey already called me 3 times, said, "Hey, give me the fight. I'll fight him." Nobody wants to fight. I'll fight him. I called Eddie. I said, "Hey, let's get it going. Come on, let's do this." So that's the kind of competition that'll bring out some good fights for the fans.
And it also goes back to what we said earlier on about the best fighting the best. Legacy.
Absolutely. Boxing will never die as long as we continue to do that, and as long as the best are fighting the best. Yes, the fans got caught up a little bit. They got steered in a way that the zero is the most important thing for a fighter to be called great. No. One of them that did it, and he's great, and he's going to be an all-time great, but the rest can't follow that pattern. The rest have to fight the rest, and you know what? Sometimes a loss will teach you more than all these wins.
Yeah,
and what's going to make a great fighter? How they get up from a defeat, how they come back from a defeat. Roberto Duran lost many fights, but then we will still remember he beat Iran Barkley. He wasn't supposed to beat Iran Barkley. Those types of fights that you relive and say, "Wow, how did they do this?" is what makes them special.
Yeah. Well, Roberto, 46 minutes, fella. Really appreciate your time. Have you got one last message for the UK boxing fans before we bring it to a close?
Absolutely. I mean, without the fans, the promoters, the boxers, keep supporting your boxing, keep requesting those best fighting the best. And to the British fans out there, you guys are some of the best fans I've ever met. I mean, you guys are amazing. I'll never be able to forget that Hatton Mania and how amazing it was. And even when I went back to Manchester for the Sajenko comeback, it was like, wow. Now with Campbell, I saw him spar a couple days back when I was out there. It's bringing it back. So I think Ricky Hatton fans, Matthew Hatton fans are going to come back and say, let's see Campbell and support him. And then Campbell fans. So I think it could only, grow and keep going. Anthony Joshua. I mean, there's some great fighters out there. Sonny Edwards. Keep your eye out on Sandoval.
Yeah, Sonny Edwards, yeah.
Sandoval, baby. We're coming for that title. Sandoval had a very good experience. To Jay Harris, his team, and everybody out there, they treated us amazing. He's a gentleman, a warrior inside the ring. I wish him and his team all the best. Jay, keep your head up. Keep fighting strong. You'll be back. And to everybody else, look, we just want to put on some of the best fights. Let's do it. I still would love to see Amir Khan and Kell Brook. That's a fight we need to see out there. It has to happen. It's a natural.
Right, okay. Roberto, again, thank you for spending your time this evening. Really appreciate it. Hopefully we can do a part 2 sometime later in the year. If you're open to that, I'd really appreciate that. And I bid you good afternoon and good evening from the UK. Thank you, Roberto.
Thank you, gents. Take care. All the best to you guys.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.